thanks for joining us. We want to do lots of these more often, and we see that there's a need and lots of different topics to discuss. We ran out of time last time, so Taylor and Camille, thank you guys for shifting over to today. And Sean had more to share with you guys last time, but we had some good conversations last month when we met, so it was good to keep going. So thank you for joining us again today. I think I know everyone on the call, but in case I don't know you, my name is Susan Rossi, and the Director of Competition with Move United, and previously was with Adaptive Sports USA. So we are excited you guys joined us. This is mainly event directors tonight of the competitions, as well as some of those on our competition committee. So sit back and let's just have a good old time for the next hour. This will be pretty informal, where you guys can feel free to raise your hand or jump in with a question or chat throughout the whole time. But if you wouldn't mind muting in the meantime, just so we can focus on whoever's speaking. I just want to say a couple quick things that are going on behind the scenes and some updates to make sure we're all on the same page. And one of those is we did announce the competition calendar for all these sanctioned events that we have here around the country. So that has gone out through our member network. It'll go out through our Warfighter Sports, which is 15,000 plus veterans around the country, as well as the youth newsletter here soon. And then we'll push it out through the VA and High School Association and some other places. So that is online. Shelly will send you guys the link to make sure you know where it is on our website if you want to download it or pass it around, as well as a real-time updated list of events. So as you know, with COVID, some events are canceling, some events are postponing. So Jesse's been keeping a real-time live calendar and listing of your guys' events so that we make sure we don't have outdated information out there. So as we mentioned last time, we are in transition with developing a new website. So the landing page that we keep all that on, Shelly will send you the link tomorrow, so you guys have that. Couple other things I want to mention. We're not ready to announce this or launch this yet, but as we've said in some other discussions, we are having some more involvement with the Hartford at an expanded level than we've had before as an organization. They've supported Move United for decades now with Ski Spectacular and some ability equipped programs, but they're going to move more into the competition space, which we're really excited about. So just to forewarn you, this year with Endeavor Games, UCO Endeavor Games and Junior Nationals, you'll see some information go out with Hartford support around that. And then we're going to expand on it in 2021. So we'll keep you up to speed on all that, and hopefully you guys will be a part of what's going on. But it just gives us a chance to look at things and look at the structure of how we're doing everything and hopefully enhance things moving forward. There's also some funding opportunities that have gone out recently through Move United. One I forwarded you guys all yesterday on the VA grant. So, you know, Tri-State, you guys, Beehive, all you guys that have been part of our pass-through grant the past 4 or 5 years as Adaptive Sports USA. Now we invite you to still do it through Move United, but we want to make sure you know that it's a different process as far as I used to work one-on-one with you guys on letters of support and stuff. It's more automated now, and I sent you guys all that yesterday. So if you're interested in diving in and you don't write your own VA grant, please get that in before March 8th. And then there's been some Nielsen opportunities as well. So just know that we're always thinking about this network and thinking about you guys for pass-through funding as we see things come up, and we'll make sure you guys hear any announcements. Couple other things as far as some things that Shelly's been putting out. Last time we talked about data, and Krista was on to talk about why we collect the data and the importance of data and kind of the new fields we're collecting, which are all really important. So can't stress enough that that stuff we really want you guys to collect in your registration process, to be a part of this bigger movement of what we're serving and who we're serving as a network. So Shelly can provide you with a template if you didn't see it already. We can help you guys work with Simply Register if you use that to get a template going. But I just want to stress that that is really important and really appreciated. If you have COVID plans, we'd love you to pass that along to Shelly as well. I know Phil Galley sent out some suggestions for those of you that do track and field to look at as an example, and Jesse had sent out some suggestions in the past. So please keep in touch if you need help or if you need some people to brainstorm with that about. And then, go ahead.
We at Texas Regional had a doctor write our COVID plan, so I'll send you that. It's one from the hospital, and she's written it for all the different sports.
Awesome, Darlene.
That's
Are you
great.
okay if Shelly passes that around to everybody?
Yeah, I just know that like it's updated as of today's date, and as COVID restrictions change, like it might have to get updated again. But we had she's a classifier for Stephanie Tao. You guys probably know her. She's written our COVID protocol for Texas Regional Games for all our different sports. So I will pass it along. I have Paul pass it.
That's awesome. And, you know, like we stressed before, it really comes down to the venues you guys are working with. They'll have their protocol too, but that'll be huge to help people. And then I know some people are waiting on turning in their sanctioning applications because it's so uncertain right now, but please get those into Shelly. Once she has those in, she'll give you guys the Move United Sanction Competition logo, and we'll also start to get some banners created and send out to those that we have applications in for. Last thing from me, and I'll turn it over to Shelly, is Jesse and Shelly and I do plan to put out a meeting notice for coaches and athletes. We've been talking to you guys a lot, but we really haven't shared with coaches that aren't part of an event or with athletes. So we'll do that on March 18th. We haven't put it out there yet. When we do, we'll put it out to you guys as well. But just for a time people can ask questions about the competition season, people can ask questions about junior nationals. We might not have all the answers yet, but at least we can be transparent and opening conversation and dialogue with them. Current E-team grants, if you guys coach or work with a program for kids, those are open through March 12th. That's gone out through Move United. So please pay attention to that if you want to pass it on to your kiddos. And then Shelly will also pass along to you this week. As we mentioned in the past, we surveyed the athletes that competed at all of our events collectively in 2019. We got about 200 plus responses, which was good feedback, and she'll share with you guys all the information, anywhere from the cost to hotels, to the cost of registration, to what they want in swag bags, to what they want to see in an event. There was some good, useful information. So I will turn it over to Shelly. Again, thank you guys for being here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sue. And thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for sharing your evening, afternoon with us. Just a really quick update. We shared this information before about the Move United Educational Conference. Do want to let you know that the decision has been made that this will be entirely virtual. We had hoped to do kind of a combination, and that's not going to work out this year. So the dates have changed slightly. They will be May 10th through the 14th. Up here on the screen, you can see the various session tracks. We are in the process of finalizing that agenda, so we'll have that published around mid-March, and then early April we'll go ahead and open registration for that. So today is really just kind of a fun, interactive session with all of you. We had these items slated on our last agenda, and we went a little bit long, and so to be respectful of everybody's time, we thought we would regroup on these. So we're going to spend some time with both Arizona Disabled Sports and Angel City Sports, just talking about engaging athletes and community in your events. They've got some fun stuff to share. And then our own Sean Butcher, who's part of our marketing and communications team, is going to spend some time talking to all of us about public relations. So with that, I'm going to introduce Taylor Taylor Wilson is the Special Events and Competitions Director with Arizona Disabled Sports. And of course, they are the sponsors of Desert Challenge. So I'll turn this over to Taylor.
Hi, everyone. So I'm obviously Taylor. And so the thing that I'm talking about is our toddler run. And we actually stole this idea from Angel City Games. So thank you guys for your idea. Theirs is big and huge and awesome. And we just took a really cute idea and we turned it into something a little bit smaller, something that fit our event. So here's a video. I believe this is from 2019. This is one of our best turnouts for the toddler run, and it's just super cute. But it's just really cute. Like the girl that's running right now with the stroller, she's actually pulling or pushing her little sister. And I mean, some of them, they're super into it and super competitive, and then some of them just plop on the start line and start crying once their mom walks away from them. So, but I mean, how can you not love that? So yeah, we stole the idea from Angel City Games, and Lane is actually the one who implemented this. And so we just went around and we focused on Hanger Clinic, and they're the ones, so the toddler run is brought to you by the Hanger Clinic, and it just gave them they've been a sponsor of us for years and years and years, and it gave them something to focus on and really like market as theirs. And so they ended up getting even more involved with us. We ended up seeing more money come in from them, and we ended up seeing it was like a great recruitment for us as well. So all of these little kids, now we have all of their information. They're a little bit too young to be in our programs, but we can keep in contact with them. And now, and wait a couple of years, like 2 or 3 years or so, and then they're involved in our programs now as well, which is really great. It also gives them something really cool. I mean, you get these little toddlers and they're in the presence of Paralympians, and it's like, I think like it kind of shows them like, oh, this is what I can do when I'm big, which is really awesome. And this is also like a media dream. Like you can plaster these kids on anything and everyone's going to give you money for it. Everyone's going to want to come see this. So it's just a really great little event. We do this at our opening ceremonies. So this is like the start of everything. So this is like the part where everyone is there pretty much. We're doing the national anthem, everything like that. And then to kick it off, we have these little kids. And it's just a great way to start the event. And it's super easy, it requires very minimal effort. It's just creating a flyer, distributing it out. We send it out to obviously the Hanger Clinic. So they do a lot of the recruitment for us. And then we also send it out to our local preschools. And it's pretty small, but we're working on making it a little bit bigger for this year. So yeah.
Taylor, do you have an age range?
We try to keep it between like 2 to 5 years old, but if someone who's 6 registers and they fit in enough, then yeah, we'll let them in. And it's a free event, no registration costs. And then we have Hanger Clinic at the end, and they're the ones that like give them their medals when they're done. So yeah. I don't really have anything else for it, but.
Why don't we open it up to questions? Does anybody have any other questions for Taylor? I mean, how can you not love this? You're right. This is a media dream.
It really is. You stick these kids, you take their picture and stick it on the front of your program, and it does great. But
that's awesome. Any questions? Is there anything in the chat, Jessie?
Yes, Cindy just asked, what ages and is it inclusive?
Yeah, so we try to stick between 2 to 5 years old, but we'll let someone older or younger in. And yeah, so I think you saw like the girl was pushing her sister in her stroller. Her sister doesn't have any disability at all, but she wears AFOs. So she was pushing her sister. Sometimes if it's not big enough, if we've only got 2 or 3 kids, we literally have gone into the grandstands and said, hey, let us borrow your child. And we just plop them in at the race just so we have like a full heat so that all the lanes are filled. So.
Any other questions? This is great. Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate you sharing that and love the video. All right. If there are no other questions, we are going to move on. There we go. Wrong way. Apologize. My screen seems to have.
And
frozen.
Shelley, while you're doing that, I just want to mention in the chat, if somebody didn't see it, Clayton with Angel City Games mentioned they often have babies participate with parents, which is super cute. And Cassidy with UCO Endeavor, you guys do the 20-meter and 60-meter dash for little ones. So if anyone, this is kind of a low-hanging fruit of something to add to your event that doesn't cost a lot and engages an expanded population. So sounds like between UCO Endeavor and Angel City and Desert Challenge, you guys can reach out for more ideas. Long run, jump, and throw toddler games is what we call it. Super cute. And you give out really soft, cozy blankets one of the years I was there. Okay, thanks, Shelley.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So Angel City Sports, of course, Taylor mentioned that they do the toddler run, but they are really, I feel like I was fortunate to go out there 2 years ago. I think I was there in 2019, and they do a tremendous job of really engaging athletes and community into their event. And so they're going to share some of those ideas. Both we have Camille, who is their program director, who is here with us, and then also Clayton, who is their CEO and founder. So they're going to also, I think, share some ideas to be able to bring that into your event. So with that, I will turn it over to the two of them.
Thank you, Shelley. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I can't see anybody. I'm on my, I can see Shelley. That's all I can see. So listen, super excited to be here. I know many of the names on here. So super stoked to be here. I'll give you just like a little background around the Angel City Games. So many of you were our mentors in the early days. Arizona Disabled Sports has been out helping us run the games every year. So it does take a village. But we started in 2015. It was a 2-day, a clinic day and a competition. It was only track. We did a little wheelchair basketball that first year. Now it's 4 days. It's going to need to be bigger in the future. But 19, which is the last year, we did a real games. We had nine competitive sports and had 15 different clinic sports, 400 athletes, 600 volunteers, and always hard to track total attendees, but we think probably, couple thousand attendees. And then we pivoted to virtual and had a crazy 3 weeks of programming this past summer. Next slide, Shelley, if you're the one controlling this. Or I don't think I'm controlling this. Okay, cool. So, we're in a weird place in Los Angeles, which is, we kind of had to start from scratch. And I think part of our strategy was just to sort of make it really fun and not take the sport quite as seriously. And be a really fun place for newer athletes and the broader community to come in and learn. So this is why you see we spend a lot of time on our special events. And so I might argue that that's actually more important than the sport to some extent for us and the purpose that we serve in the community. But we do a big opening ceremonies and a parade of athletes. Every night we have some sort of community special event. We have a youth council that does a fun run. That's a fundraising event. We do closing ceremonies, although usually nobody's there for closing ceremonies. But the two ones that we want to talk about today are the celebrity wheelchair basketball game and the experience zone. And I'll speak to the celebrity game briefly. You go to the next slide, Shelley, please, or whoever. And then Camille's going to talk about the experience zone. And again, we kind of look at everything we do from athlete recruiting, getting them, someone along their journey, and then educating the general public. And so the celebrity game has grown in importance in the calendar. So the first year, it was sort of like a backyard game of basketball. And our celebrities were Paralympians and former UCLA basketball players. It has evolved. And so we have attracted some Hollywood celebrities. Every year we've had Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider, Gabriel Luna, who's the new Terminator, Kim Raver from Grey's Anatomy, and a whole host of other sort of Hollywood celebs. That's just like the beauty of being in Los Angeles. But what's happened, I think, just kind of interesting over time, is it's sort of become, it's really become probably one of the largest evening events that we host. And so people really look forward to it. And I think a big part of that is we set expectations with celebrities that they need to stick around and sign autographs and be accessible. And so you really get to kind of run up and meet, the Paralympians that are in the game, as well as the celebrities and sometimes sort of Olympic and NFL, NBA type athletes. So, but it's super fun. It has music now, and we do different performances at halftime. So it's gotten a little fancier from its sweet, humble days of just being almost like a backyard game. We literally did the first game on the track at UCLA. But yeah, so what I like about it is it draws new supporter families out to see the sport of wheelchair basketball. And while the celebrities are terrible themselves, like Rob Schneider, for example, couldn't hit a shot the whole night. Mayor Garcetti, on the other hand, hit his first shot and then he checked out of the game. But people get to see Matt Scott or Trooper Johnson and some of our top players that come, and so they do get to see the sport in kind of being done at a fairly high level. And so what happens is people fall in love with those wheelchair basketball stars, the Paralympians that are in the game, and they really start to appreciate the sport. So I think that's, for us, the most important thing, is that people that don't know anything about what we do learn to sort of love and appreciate the sports. And so, I know I'm seeing Susan just sent some message, but like, I don't think it has to be like a Hollywood thing. It could be Paralympians, it could be, sponsors or local dignitaries in your community. It could be, you could do a veterans team against a Paralympic team. There's a million ways you could do this. And maybe you don't even call it a celebrity game, or could call it whatever you want. But it's like a showcase, right? I guess is like what I would call it. We just have the benefit of being in Hollywood. But yeah, so that's the celebrity game, and it's probably my favorite night of the games. It's so fun. Hopefully some of you can join us in the future when we can get back to real events. And I'm going to let Camille. I guess I have one more slide. Sorry.
Hey, Clayton, I have one question. Did the celebrities get to practice, or literally did they get in the chair and play for the first time?
Yeah, it's a good point. So we do run sort of a legit game, and we have a coach, usually like a celebrity coach. They don't usually know much about anything. But it depends on the celebrities. If they get there early, usually Trooper Johnson, his wife Megan, and his kids are there, and they train. They will train the celebrities in the basics of maneuvering the chair and things like that. But I would say they generally get very, very little warm up, which makes it kind of fun because they kind of have to learn on the job. It's a little stressful for some, but and for example, Adam Sandler, the year he played, it was 2016, I believe. he like wasn't moving, right? He was scared of getting his fingers caught in the spokes of the wheel. And Trooper Johnson is next to him. He was on Trooper's team, screaming at Adam Sandler, and imploring him to get his butt moving and to play, because he wanted him, to participate. So yeah, it creates just lots of these funny moments like that. So that's the celebrity game. I think I'm out of slides, right? I hope I'm out of slides.
You have a couple more, but I think you covered the gist of it. Yeah, so if you don't mind, Shelley, moving on to the experience zone. We just kind of reiterated, it's nice that we're in Hollywood and we have access, but we're not, not everybody on the team is some super A-lister that needs a security detail. It's, you can use who you have in the community, local university stars. We've talked about the college scene. Maybe there's a big college in your area that can be like a good way to involve athletes there as well. So moving on to the experience zone, which is my favorite component of our event. And this is basically what we like to refer to as like the hub. So if you're not, competing, or you're not in a clinic, where are you? Because we don't want you to be at your hotel or at, some restaurant. We want you to be with the community in the event still. And so we've created a place for, not only our athletes and their families to have like a comfortable kind of hangout, explore area, but also the real opportunity for the broader community to learn and try these sports in like a very welcoming and comfortable environment. So this was the scale that we had in 2019. It didn't begin this way. When it was first beginning a few years ago, it was much smaller and much fewer tents. But you'll see, we had a couple inflatables, and so like siblings really enjoyed that aspect. They could kind of do their own thing, or we had a lot of inclusive carnival games. So this is what it looked like on the largest scale. If you could go to the next slide, please. And so, as I said, it's pretty large, and we had 1,000+ people come through over the weekend. We wanted to be that home base, as I mentioned. And so like the key for us was this main stage, which is where a lot of the special events we hosted were held. When they had the parade of athletes, everybody came in and we all kind of culminated in front of the main stage, and our speakers and our sponsors were able to address everybody in like a really kind of not formal, but like concise area. And it felt like kind of elevated. We had Paralympians address the crowd, and then we had musicians throughout the weekend, and they had like a real venue to perform at. So they enjoyed that aspect of it being like a professional gig for them. And we liked that kind of center spot. And the last photo is when we had our fundraising event on the right, another kind of meeting area. So we're all going to do the fun run and roll. Everybody meet at the main stage, get excited together, get pumped up together, and then we'll get going. Next slide, please. And so really like the experience zone, it's become a magnet for the community. And there's 4 kind of pillars that we try to emphasize with this area. The first being education. So it's a great place to learn about the Paralympic movement and learn from our sport coaches and other organizations that have tents. So we'll invite partner organizations, sponsors to have a booth, and it kind of becomes a vendor village, if you will. So you can kind of roll around and get familiar and try products. And so sponsors love that. But also it's just, again, like creating more of that sense of community. You're in it. You're not just going to your event and leaving. And then you're able to try new sports. And we again emphasize that this is for the greater community to try something, and have a different perspective as opposed to just watching the sport or shagging balls as a volunteer. You can hop in the chair and have a different feeling of what it actually entails in playing. Or you could have an opportunity to learn from one of the greatest. So the picture on the left is Angela Madsen, Paralympic rower. Last year, she lost her life doing what she loved in rowing. And so the opportunity for just a normal, doesn't know about adaptive sports person to come to our event, try an adaptive sport, learn from a pro, they would be invested from that point on. Next slide, please. And then the two other main pillars, sponsor recognition and community building. So as I mentioned, the sponsors get more of that face-to-face interaction. They're more than just like a logo on a brochure or a logo on a t-shirt. They're getting to meet the people that they've contributed to serving. And then that concept of the Paralympic Village. So the games, the food, the entertainment, it's all kind of creating this fun atmosphere of this is, it's a special occasion, it's for you, and the community is here to support you. So you'll see you got an athlete shooting in the chair and then Mayor Garcetti rebounding for him. If we don't have the experience zone, that opportunity isn't there because we would just be doing our clinic and our 3-on-3 competition, and that kind of organic, fun, try it atmosphere wouldn't exist. Next slide, please. So those are kind of our two major events that we host throughout the weekend. And I think, again, they're on a larger scale now because we've been doing them for a while. They didn't start that way. And really, we just want to focus on inviting the greater community in and making our athletes feel special, and that this event is for them, and you go all out, and I think that's appreciated. Happy to answer any questions about either event.
Yeah, I have a question, Camille, and thanks so much for sharing these ideas. This is great. What is your org structure? Because at the end of the day, it just takes so much energy for the sports, and we do the new sports, and we've done the Chicago Bears with wheelchair football, but I just feel like we need a stronger org chart, and would love, and if not here, but would love to see the org chart, because I definitely need help in that area.
Of course. I would say that all of our special events actually are run by volunteer team. And so, we probably rely on a group of 30 volunteers, and there's small teams for each group. Because this is way too much heavy lifting for, the Oregon itself to do. And we need those connections and those problem solvers. So happy to kind of share in depth, but there are a lot of people that go into each of these elements without a doubt.
Yeah, I would. And again, I would love to talk, again, because I'm just, it's awesome. So it's really, really exciting what you guys are doing. So it's fun to learn. So.
Thank you.
I think, Cindy, just to add to what Camille said, we didn't have any staff for a couple of years, so these ideas were birthed by volunteers. It was just me, and a bunch of, ragtag group of volunteers. But what does happen if you just start and you have low expectations, right? The volunteers they fall in love with, right, either their event or a sport, or you've probably seen it in your own organization. So the same thing happens with the special events, right? People kind of find a connection, or they kind of fall in love with it. And so then they sort of help grow it over time. And so I think we're pretty blessed now to have this leadership team. Some people drop off, some people get added in, but they all have had experience running the games the last few years, some of them since 2015. There's probably, Camille, what do you think? There's probably 5 members maybe of the team that have been with us since the beginning, and then a bunch that have been with us for, many, many years. And so that's really the only way we're able to scale it, Cindy. It's not staff, right?
Right. I'm like, where do all these people come from? So
amazing, and listen, I was personally very involved in almost all of these special events the first year, because like no one had a vision of how to do it. And I had seen Parade of Athletes at Junior Nationals. So, okay, so let's find our own version of that here, so, but yeah, it's just through the grace of all these volunteers really that it's been able to grow.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I just want to chime in again really quick and thank you guys, and mention if any of you other events and event directors or friends want to share in the future, we could do more of these. Just different things you have going on that you think are pretty cool that you'd like to share and educate people about. So, let Shelly know just on a rolling basis, and we can always schedule more. And I love your question, Cindy, because I think probably a lot of people were feeling that like we're all volunteers, or this is not my day job, or whatnot. And so just don't worry about being grand. Just start off small and pick maybe one of these cool nuggets of things that they shared that you could do, to supplement the track event, to supplement the archery event or whatnot. It doesn't have to be large, but it's just about engaging athletes and engaging the sponsors, engaging them a little bit more with some cool, unique things that make them want to come back or make them want to invite somebody else out. So it doesn't have to be big, but these are some cool ideas.
That's great. Thank you. So appreciate that. And yes, we were hoping that we'd have time to just have everybody jump in and share their ideas. And I was going to, share a thought about how that something very similar engaged me. And I ended up with Adaptive Sports USA as sort of, a part of that experience, that initial experience. So you never know how that's going to grow and where you're going to land. So thank you so much for that. We're going to keep moving on so we don't shortchange everyone. I'd like to introduce Sean. Sean is part of our Move United marketing and communications team. In fact, he's the communications manager. If you were lucky enough to be on our last session, you met Sean then. And he didn't have a chance to take a deeper dive into public relations. So we're going to do that now. Sean?
Well, thank you, Shelley. I have had the opportunity, besides briefly speaking last go round, of interacting and meeting some of you, particularly those that had maybe dual association or membership with Adaptive Sports USA and Disabled Sports USA. So now that we're one big family, I'm excited to work with more of you and get to know more of you as well. Just to kind of give you a brief introduction for PR, for those of you that might be PR pros, hopefully maybe this is just a refresher, or you might get a new nugget or two out of it. And for those that might need a support or assistance, in addition to maybe some thoughts or ideas that I'll share tonight, please know that one of the benefits of at least the merger to Move United is that the competition series almost has an additional department. So Sue and Jesse and Shelley have, you met the other team, last go round in terms of myself as well as Dave and Jackie. So just to kind of give you a brief overview of kind of the lens in which I view public relations. I both professionally, at Move United, as well as personally, wear almost like dual roles or two hats. I am, as editor of our magazine, am constantly pitched, press releases or story ideas from third parties out there. In most cases, they probably don't know kind of the structure and the intent of the magazine, which is really to focus on our network and our constituents, whether it be our member organizations or the athletes served by our member organizations, or the athletes that are still yet to find some of our member organizations out there. But also, as the communications manager of Move United, I'm also pitching. So I pitching story ideas and to other media outlets, whether it be print or otherwise. And then personally, I've also worn both hats. I do some freelance writing on the side, and for a number of publications. I'm a columnist from a local newspaper, so I write about a column every 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm pitching again ideas or stories, or they're also coming to me because they know that I write for certain publications. So I look through at public relations through both lenses. Go ahead and next slide. So really the target of public relations is, and the goal of public relations is to create visibility. And visibility means, obviously for your organization, for your event, or for your program, or even also your stakeholders. And your stakeholders could be the athletes that you serve. It could also be the donors or sponsors of the event. So you want to make sure when you're engaging in a public relations activity to create that visibility. Next slide. And visibility really means awareness. It means attention that's given to your organization. So one of the things that most folks think is if they read about it or see it on the news, that it must be credible. So it helps build credibility in your, for your program or for your organization. It's also third-party validation. So the idea that, you can tell, either if you're sending out email blasts or posting on your social media accounts, different things. If they read about it from you, that's one thing. But if they read about it in, what's supposed to be a third party or a neutral organization, whether it be a local newspaper or local TV or radio station, then it helps validate, what you're doing to the general public and to, maybe people you're trying to reach. And then also it helps maintain relationships with key constituents. So whether it be partners, whether it be sponsors, if they see something in the newspaper or in another type of traditional media outlet, then it helps maintain that relationship. So in short, it's keeping you on the top of their mind. So when you're, and it allows them to see you maybe at different times of the year, or to be, or obviously to be thinking about you. If they're reading an article about your event or your program or your activity, then at least it's top of mind. Next slide. So for some of you, let's talk a little bit about the different types of public relations. I'll spend most of my time on the one that's highlighted in green, but just for the other, so just briefly about the other two. So when we talk about owned public relations, we're talking about our own, what we own. Obviously our website, our blog posts, our email blasts, our social media. That's marketing. That's what we own. That's what we can continue to use as an opportunity to push out content, push out promotions, push out marketing. The other side of kind of the traditional media is advertising. So if you have a competition coming up, you may have quarter page or half page ads in your local newspaper. So it's online advertising as well as print advertising spots. It could be everything from endorsements or ads or what they call advertorials. And then the third kind of spoke or piece of that wheel is, of course, the earned media. And this is what traditionally we call an article or a news piece. And it's also called free marketing because we're not paying for it. But at the same time, it's we're not guaranteed it. We have to, so we hope and assume that we can get earned media, but at the end of the day, it's not our decision. An editor or a producer or someone else, makes a decision whether we get that coverage or whether we get that attention. So next slide. So in the public relations world, again, I'm talking about mainly earned media. Competition is fierce. We have, every day there are, every day, all day, the journalists and news producers are being solicited for for this is the greatest thing that you need to cover it. They're getting all those types of pitches on a regular basis. And then kind of along those lines, as we all probably know and are aware, the market in this space is shrinking. So there are, my local newspaper is much smaller, than it used to be. There used to be a couple additional media outlets that used to cover and focus on local news that are gone. So there's a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of print media going away in some cases, and so we just know that that we have to be aware of that in terms of approaching the media when we want coverage. Next slide. So here's a couple of thoughts or tidbits that I like to share when we talk about again, the competition and setting yourself above the competition. First of all, relationships are best if they are mutually beneficial. So it's a two-way, it's kind of a two-way street. You're wanting coverage, you're wanting a free article or a free news segment, essentially. And the two-way street is, you want to be able to provide them with content because that's their job, right? So I have always felt in my public relations experience, that I've done for a number of, I've been in this business for nearly 2 decades, and I have always felt like, the news is there to be created. So I've been in jobs where I was submitting a press release a week because they'll either run it or they won't. But we had enough content and we have enough ideas and we have enough information and enough people that we want to spotlight or stories that we want to share that I was submitting a press release a week. And so again, I come to it with the mindset that the news is there to be created. You're helping them by providing them with a story. They have pages to fill, they have half-hour news segments to fill, and whether they fill it with yours or whether they fill it with somebody else's, if they fill it with yours, you're helping them out. So make sure that it's as much as possible mutually beneficial. So a couple of things that you can do in terms of doing your homework is knowing who you are pitching. If you don't want to necessarily just find an email address of a local newspaper reporter and send them a press release. Maybe that newspaper reporter is the crime block reporter. That's their beat. Maybe it's the education person. So you're soliciting the wrong person. They'll just ignore it, and it will go unread or it will go unnoticed. I mean, maybe they'll forward it to somebody, maybe they won't. So know who you are pitching. Furthermore, know their target audience. So, if you're pitching a sports writer, then obviously they're covering sports. If you're pitching the health writer, their focus is health. And so again, just know not only who you're pitching, but who their target audience is. And then also, again, just learn the topics and the beats that the journalists that are covering. When I go online and I don't know someone and I'm trying to build a relationship or kind of cold pitch, if you will, a journalist, I look and see what kind of stories they've covered in the past. What kind of stories are they interested in? Sometimes websites are great about that and will say, this journalist covers this and likes to cover these types of stories. So again, just kind of learn a little bit more, do some research and do your homework along those lines. Next slide. So just kind of, wrapping up some of these thoughts and bringing them a little bit into fruition here. Again, just identify always your recipient. So I always pitch an article or a story to someone directly, an actual name or person, but I also then send it to, the news desk at or the info at, so that because news, traditional media, and again, I'm generalizing, not always, it's not always the case. General media, they sit around like the local news station will sit around in the morning and determine what's on our schedule today. What do we know about? Minus obviously all of the things that pop up that you can't control, like the big house, warehouse fire or the tornado, or those are things out of your control. But in general, in the morning, they're sitting around and they're saying, what's on the schedule, what's on the docket for today. So pitch a specific reporter that you may have a relationship with, or you may think might be interested in your story, but also make sure it gets to the news desk because maybe that reporter's off that day. Maybe they've already been assigned something. So make sure that if you pitch it to the news desk or the general email account or whatever you find for that, for that specific media outlet, that it will hopefully get on the docket or on the radar of whoever the producers or the editors that are reviewing what's up on for the day. Also, make your pitch newsworthy. So again, they're pitched all day, every day. So what makes the news story stand out? And sometimes in our space, we have, the challenge of this is the 16th annual event, right? So, what makes it unique? What makes it different? You've been doing it for 16 years. So make sure you find something unique. Maybe it's an individual athlete story. Maybe it's some specific activity or event that's new, that you want to engage. When you make your pitch newsworthy, maybe offer an exclusive or an advance on a story, so that that a media outlet feels kind of, or a journalist feels like they're kind of special along those lines. Yes, soon, 50th anniversary is a great thing to highlight, because that's a big milestone and a big deal. Again, understand your audience. So tailor the pitch to the specific outlet. So I'm guilty of sending blast emails out to 10 news outlets at the same time. And so I'm guilty of that often, and because I can't do the individual attention, or don't have time, but when you can give the special attention, then that's going to, again, elevate you a little bit more. Fourth, pique their interest. So when an email comes in, the first thing that obviously that the journalist or other person sees is the subject line. So make sure the subject line is engaging. Make sure it draws their attention. If they're getting 15 other people, submitting a press release to them that day, yours may not even get opened up if your subject line is boring. Maybe it doesn't even pique their interest enough to do so. When I talk about sending it out, I really mean talking about timing. So timing is critical. There's obviously a big debate in terms of how much advance notice you should give. But there's also some thoughts about avoiding Monday mornings or avoiding Friday afternoons. If you submit on a Friday afternoon, it may not get looked at, because it may get buried, by the time that the person comes back in on Monday. So just kind of think about your timing in terms of when you submit a press release. For daily newspapers, you could give less advance notice. You still may want to put it on their agenda, or at least put out a media advisory so that they know the events coming up. For a magazine, just to give you an idea of our magazine, our editorial calendar is set a year in advance. So I know right now what our winter 2021 issue is going to focus on. So if you have a monthly, if you have a local monthly magazine, or even a magazine that comes out less frequently than that, you need to also be thinking way in advance of that in order for them to put it into their editorial calendar and think about covering your story or your article. And lastly, follow up. So I typically send an email first with the article or with the pitch. And then if I don't hear from them, if they don't reply back to me, just saying, "Hey, got it, thanks. We'll put it on our radar." I'll follow up with a phone call, and that's kind of where I start. Now, note, if you follow up one or two times and you still aren't engaging, I would, in most cases, let it be. That way you're not annoying or offending or turning them off, if you will. Just wait for the next time and then the next opportunity to maybe pitch that person or pitch that outlet. And also I've obviously done research and tried to find another person perhaps to pitch in a department if it didn't work. Just last thing that I'll share is it's interesting. You can go ahead and that's fine. You can go to the last slide. Sorry about that. The last thing that I'll really just share is it's interesting that that we talked about the inviting celebrities, like the celebrity wheelchair basketball game that was talked about. I have seen, so there's great ways to engage media other than just coming out and covering, writing a story or an article. And there are ways in which you may supplement your opportunity or chance to get that coverage. And that's if you engage somebody, like I'm going to say that your local ABC affiliate or your local NBC affiliate. If you've got, the morning anchor coming out to your evening event to MC the closing award ceremony, then that news station may also send out a reporter or journalist to tie in the fact that John Doe or Jane Doe came out from the station was the MC of the event. I've seen events engage radio versus TV in a kind of a fun activity or game. So think about ways to engage the media actually in your event. if you can do a radio a disc jockey versus a newspaper reporter in a couple of different activities, then that might engage or excite their media outlets directly, but also maybe even more media outlets. And lastly, to kind of just tie back in with the pie chart, if you will, obviously you can engage media as sponsors, in-kind, even if it's in-kind sponsors, maybe they don't have cash, most of them don't or won't provide cash, but if you want to look at them as a in-kind sponsor, and maybe they'll do a number of 30-second PSAs or a number of quarter-page ads in the newspaper, and then they get the same treatment as other sponsors do as well. So there's a number of different ways that you can engage or elevate your public relations. And I'll stop there and see if there are questions or even other best practices or thoughts that folks may want to share.
Can I chime in really quick and just mention, well, thank you, Sean, especially you're on the East Coast, so this is dipping into your evening. So thank you so much for being on this and the one before it. And just a reminder, we had told you guys last time that Sean put together a press release for all of you to use that shows your involvement with Move United as part of a sanctioned event, as well as what you're doing on the ground there. So if we haven't got that out to you guys, we will. And then I just want to mention, because there's such a spectrum of budget size for events and staff versus no staff on this call. So Sean, maybe your thoughts, an intern comes to mind for me, or a volunteer, of how somebody can manage these things if it's just a one-person show and they're a volunteer. Have you had luck with interns taking on these kind of things?
Yes, absolutely. And we, if you are able to engage, either a high school or college intern, at Move United, we have interns that are specializing in kind of the sports management field or programming field. So they often help with event coordination or other types of programs or activities. But then we've been successful in engaging interns that are actually studying marketing and communications. And so, arranging an opportunity for a student to not only practice what they are studying and give them real world experience, but it helps you, it alleviates you from having to have that responsibility of building your media distribution list or reaching out to reporters or writing press releases and those types of things. So that's definitely a successful way, or just in terms of your local committee, having someone with a marketing and communications background. Maybe it's from an actual firm that specializes in marketing and communications. Maybe it's a journalist as well, who might have relationships with their outlet, but also other media outlets, to just really help get into the space. Maybe it's a marketing person at a local bank. Obviously that's what they do full time. And so maybe they're willing to come on as a volunteer and say, I'll help take on the marketing and communications, and press kind of role for your competition or event. So there's a number of ways where, I know that many of you do wear multiple hats, and this would be just one of them. So those are some suggestions on how to get other people involved.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Anything in the chat?
I'm from the New York area, and I just have a question on how do you break into that kind of market? We've had large companies come in and work with us through the USOPC and BP a number of years ago, and even they couldn't break into the New York market at all. Do you have any suggestions?
Paul, it's tough. Obviously, we're in the DC area, and when you are in a large market, I mean, your goal is obviously either to be in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, or down here it's the Washington Post or the LA Times, and that's really a tough nut to crack. I find it. I have found better success in getting either a local television outlet than obviously the big, the giant or the king or queen in the print space. So it's one, again, just really developing a relationship, and sometimes it's learning, a new reporter. In the media world, there is a lot of turnover. And so maybe if you happen to, or if you're able to just identify a new reporter that just came on board who is trying to make their name in that space, and in reaching out to that person, maybe it's maybe you'll have success there. But obviously, there are some big ones out there that is just tough to get that type of success. The benefit that we do have in this space is, we can pitch a number of types of stories. We can pitch a sports story, so it's the sports writers and editors. We can pitch a health story. We can pitch a feature story about a specific athlete. We can even pitch the business writer or writers on a. And so finding, and maybe trying to go different angles would be a number of ways that we could go about our approach. And so don't, if you have an educational component, maybe the education writer. So it's really just finding the right angle. And if you're engaging, like I know Angel City had the mayor out. So if you engage the mayor, then there are definitely reporters that are tied to, and journalists that are tied to following, what the mayor is doing, and that's the local. So that would person, there's a writer or writers that have the local, city beat as their beat. So those are a number of ideas that I could give you. So don't just try one. You might have to try multiple. And so again, back to the business, one of the things that some of us do well, but all of us probably could do better, is to talk about the business side of what we do. The economic impact, the how we do bring in tourists or people who stay the night. So don't just focus on the sports side, or don't just focus on the feature editor, or look at a number of ways that we can approach a story. Any other questions? And feel free to reach out to us. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, if you have a media distribution list, put me on it. If we know about, obviously we know about the events themselves, but if we're in tune with at Move United, if the marketing and communications team, I know Sue and Shelley and Jesse will do a great job with this as well, or helping us. But if there's ways that we can help, and if we're in tune with what's going on and what you're doing, if we can help, we're happy to help. If you need to bounce an idea off of us, feel free to just reach out to me. That's why I put my email address there. That's probably the best way to reach me. And I'm happy to help if I can.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate your time.